Okay, this lecture will focus on two main aspects: introduction to macroeconomics and gross national product and gross domestic product beside the national income. Let us firstly highlight the main of what is behind macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is a branch of economics which seeks to model the economy as whole. Like macroeconomics is a social science in that it tries to model and predict human behavior. Macroeconomics sets itself a highly ambitious task. Human economies are not only highly complex entities, human behavior is also inherently reflexive. What we believe about the social world determines how we behave, which in turn shapes the social world itself. This feature of human social life is recognized in many social sciences. In macroeconomic theory, the most common example is the way in which expectation about the future affect current behavior. On top of this, the consequences of getting things wrong can mean human misery on a vast scale. In particular, macroeconomics, as mentioned, is a social science, explains the behavior of community as a whole. What do I mean by the behavior of community as a whole? It talks not about consumer, the behavior of consumer, but the behavior of consumption sector. Not about producer, but the behavior of investment sector, government sector, international trade sector. In order to understand the mission or the essence of macroeconomics, you have to understand the main sectors of each national economy. Theoretically, each national economy consists of main four sectors: household sector, investment sector, and government sector. Finally is sector of international trade, between brackets export and import. This classification will help us to understand the main aspect of macroeconomics. The main aspect of macroeconomics is the relation between aggregate supply of goods and services and aggregate demand of goods and services. In this manner, I have also would like to remind you about the main markets in each national economy, which are discussed by macroeconomics. Each national economy contains three main markets: market of goods and services, market of money, and market of labor. Okay. At its most advanced theoretical level, macroeconomics shades into microeconomics, in that macroeconomics methods are ultimately needed to justify macroeconomics theory. However, the relationship is more like that of biology to chemistry rather than, say, in organic to organic chemistry, in that you cannot simply see the one as a more complex application of the other. This is primarily because of the problem of aggregation. There is not a full consensus about the best way to piece together a microeconomics model of all the different components of the economy to build a coherent and satisfying macroeconomic model. Different philosophies about this among macroeconomists can lead to very different normative policy conclusions. At its core, macroeconomic theory is about three key markets: the goods and services market, the money market, and labor market. We usually lump all consumer goods together into a single good, which can be thought of as bundle, containing appropriate proportion of all the goods needed to survive in an economy. Hence, we think of there being a single good market. The money market concerns the determinants of the supply and demand of fiat money, coins and banknotes. However, things are more complicated than this because other financial assets such as government bonds or corporate equity are substitutes for money. Despite this complication, thinks of the money market as a single market gets us a long way. So let's concern with main questions: the definition of macroeconomics. Number 2, main sectors of national economy and main markets. The second aspect of this slide is about the key measures of national economy. The key measures of national economy includes gross national product, GNP, gross domestic product, GDP, and national economy. We will highlight in details these terms. Three points will be highlighted in this slide. First, to understand the meaning of macroeconomics, to understand the scope of macroeconomics, and to understand the importance of macroeconomics. As we mentioned before, macroeconomics is a branch of economics that studies the behavior of an overall economy, which encompasses markets, business, consumers, and government. Macroeconomics examines economy-wide phenomena such as inflation, price levels, rate of economic growth, national income, gross domestic product, and change in the rate of unemployment. Some of the key questions addressed by macroeconomics include: what causes of inflation? What causes of unemployment? What creates or stimulates economic growth? Macroeconomics attempts to measure how well an economy is performing, understand what forces drive it, and project how performance can improve. Now, let me list main key takeaways. 1. Macroeconomic is a branch of economics that deals with the structure, performance, behavior, and decision making of the whole or aggregate economy. Understand? While microeconomics deal with the behavior of economic units, not economy as a whole. For example, the microeconomics tools analyzes the behavior of consumer, the impact of elasticity of demand or elasticity of supply, the theory of utility, the market of competition, like that. Macroeconomics focuses on the behavior of the consumption sector, or the behavior of government sector. So it concerns with the behavior of the economy as a whole. So the first key takeaways: macroeconomic is a branch of economics that deals with the behavior of economy as a whole. Number 2, the two main areas of macroeconomic research are long-term economic growth and shorter-term business cycle. Let's distinguish between business cycle and economic growth. 3. Macroeconomics in its modern form is often defined as starting with John Maynard Keynes. He is a British economist. And his theories about market behavior and governmental policies in 1930s. around the post Great Depression. Several schools though have developed since. In contrast to macroeconomics, microeconomics is more focused on the influences on and choices made by individual actors, such as companies, people, industry, consumer, producer. As term implies, macroeconomics is the field of study that analyzes an economy through a wide lens. This includes looking at variables like unemployment, GDP, inflation. In addition, macroeconomics develop models explaining the relationship between these factors. Let's look to the history of macroeconomics. Why the term macroeconomics dates back to 1940s? Many of the field's core concepts have been subject of study of much longer. Topics like unemployment, price level, growth, and trade have concerned economists since the beginning of the discipline in 17th. Elements of earlier work from Adam Smith, John Stuart Mill addressed issues that would now be recognized as the domain of macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is often defined as starting with the John Maynard Keynes and his book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money, 1936. In it, Keynes explained the fallout from the Great Depression, when goods went unsold and workers were unemployed. So, now let me list the main schools of the field of macroeconomics is organized into many different schools with different views on how the markets and their participants operates. Classical school. This school held that price, wages, and rates are flexible and market tend to clear unless prevented from doing so by government policy. This idea is built on Adam Smith's original theories. The term classical economist is not actually a school of macroeconomics, but a label applied first by Karl Marx and later by Keynes to denote previous economic thinkers with whom they disagree. 2. Keynesian school was found mainly based on the works of John Maynard Keynes and was beginning of macroeconomics as a separate area of study from microeconomics. Keynesians focus on aggregate demand as the principal factor in issues like unemployment and the business cycle. Monetarists, the third school. The monetarist school is the branch of Keynesian economics credited mainly to the work of Milton Friedman, working within and extending Keynesian models. Monetarists argue the monetary policy is generally a more effective and desirable policy tool to manage aggregate demand than fiscal policy. Neoclassical. The neoclassical school, along with the neo Keynesians, is mainly built on integrating microeconomics foundation into macroeconomics to resolve the glaring theoretical contradiction between the two subjects. The neoclassical school emphasizes the importance of microeconomics, a model based on the behavior. Neoclassical economists assume that all agents try to maximize their utility and have rational expectation, with the incorporate into macroeconomics model. New Keynesian school. The new Keynesian schools also attempt to add micro foundation to the traditional Keynesian economic theories, while new Keynesian accept that households and firms operate based on traditional expectation. They still maintain that there are a variety of market failure, including sticky price and wages. Austerian. The Austerian school is an older school of economics that is seeing some resurgence in popularity. Austerian economic theory mainly applied to microeconomic phenomena. However, like so-called classical economists, they never strictly separated microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now, what is the most important concept in all of macroeconomics? The most important concept in all of macroeconomics is said to be output, which refers to the total amount of goods and services a country produces. Output is often considered as a snapshot of an economy at a given moment. What are the three major concerns of macroeconomics? The major macroeconomic concerns are the unemployment level, inflation, and economic growth. Macroeconomics helps a government evaluate how an economy is performing and decide on actions it can take to increase or slow growth. This about the answer of why the macroeconomics is important. Macroeconomics deals with the economy as a whole. It studies the behavior of economic aggregates. Such as aggregate income, consumption, investment, and the overall level of prices. It explains the working of the economy as a whole. It examines the aggregate behavior of macroeconomics entities like firm, household, and the government. It is very useful to planner for preparing economic plans for the country's development. And it's helpful in international comparison, comparative approach to distinguish between the various level of economic growth among various countries. The major aspects of macroeconomics. This is a snapshot about the major aspects of macroeconomics, in particular, not generally. The major keys of macroeconomics are aggregate demand, aggregate supply, saving, inflation and deflation, economic growth, unemployment, trade cycle, international trade, economic planning, fiscal policy and monetary policy, gross national product, gross domestic product, the international trade including export and import, economic development and economic growth, these are the major aspects of macroeconomics. Aggregate demand stands for the demand of goods and services of all sectors of economy. Respectively, we distinguish between consumption demand, investment demand, from the sector of investment, government demand, and import as a demand from abroad markets, saving consumption, of course. Aggregate supply also denotes the supply of goods and services to others, supply, household supply, supply of investment sector, supply of government sector, and export. Inflation and deflation. Let's here distinguish between price inflation and money inflation. The rapid increase of the prices, the level prices, and the rapid decrease of exchange rate of the local currency against foreign currency. Economic growth, of course, the increase of national income. Unemployment indicates the employees out of the market of labor. International trade is about the movement of goods and services between countries. And also the system of payments, including in this. This slide talks about the scope of macroeconomics. Actually, the area of macroeconomics. Macroeconomics studies the concept of national income, its methods and measurement. Of course, behind that, the study of gross national product and gross domestic product. It is about the total output and market value of goods and services produced inside the country. Usually takes 1 year. The second, macroeconomics studies the problem related to employment, the problem of employment and employment. Macroeconomics also concerns with the functions of money and theories relating to it. Central bank and other financial institutions are also a part of its study. Central bank, respectively, money supply and demand for money. Macroeconomics also studies the problems relating to economic growth or increase in per capita real income forms part of macroeconomics. Macroeconomics concerns with the trade among different countries, theory of international trade, tariff, protection, etc. are subjects of great significance to macroeconomics. These are briefly scope of macroeconomics. But the spectrum of macroeconomics is more wide than mentioned in this slide. Macroeconomics aims to highlight the problem of one, the sectors of national economy, the market of national economy, the cyclical flow of income and monetary policy, fiscal policy, trade policy, employment and unemployment, inflation, external debts, investment, FDI, foreign direct investment. Also, the international financial organizations or economic organization, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and others. The economic integration between countries, the economic unions. So there are very, very wide aspects and a very wide spectrum of the concern of macroeconomics. For the purpose of this course, we will focus on the main of market of goods and services, market of money, and labor market. National income. National income is defined as the money value of all the final goods and services produced in an economy during an accounting period of time, generally 1 year. Concepts of national income: gross national product, GNP, net domestic product, NDP, or generally said gross domestic product. Net national product, NNP. So they are gross national product, gross domestic product, net domestic product, net national product, and per capita income. The last is disposable income. These are known as the concepts of national income. We will highlight them in details. Gross domestic product, GDP. GDP is the sum of money values of all final goods and services produced within the domestic territories of a country during accounting year. So GDP equal C. C stands for consumption sector, I investment sector, G government sector, X stands for export and M stands for import. X negative M stands for net export. So this is the equation explains the gross domestic product. There are two forms of GDP. GDP at market price and GDP at factor cost. GDP at market price includes the final value of goods and services, also includes indirect taxes, and excludes the subsidies given by the government. This about GDP at market price includes the final value of goods and services plus indirect taxes with exclusion of the subsidy given by the government. GDP at factor cost, if the money value of final goods and services based on the cost involved in the process of production. So it explains the GDP through the cost of production. Okay, this is the main difference between GDP at market price and GDP at factor cost. So gross domestic product is known as the sum of money or monetary value or market value of all final goods and services produced within domestic territories of a country during accounting year. Now there are two forms of GDP: GDP at market price and GDP at factor cost. Number 2, gross national product. Gross national product or GNP is the aggregate final output of the citizen and business of an economy in a year, or the market value of all goods and services produced within a county year by the factors of production regardless the place of the investment. What do we mean by that? The market value of goods and services produced in China by the Sudanese factor of production is accounted in the GNP of Sudan. So, the market value of goods and services produced in Sudan by the Egyptian factor of production is the GNP of Egypt. The market of goods and services produced by Qatari companies or by Qatari production forces in Sudan is considered as the GNP of Qatar. So the distinguishment between gross domestic product and gross domestic GNP. Let's take for example two companies or two factors of production. Chinese company and Sudanese company. The market value of goods and services produced in Sudan by Sudanese or Chinese company is considered as the gross domestic product of Sudan. But the market value of goods and services produced by the factor of production, Chinese factor of production in Sudan, is considered as the GNP of China. So the market value of goods and services produced by the Sudanese factors of production in China is accounted as the GNP of Sudan. So, GNP may be defined as the sum of gross domestic product and net factor income from abroad, NFIA. GNP equal GDP plus NFIA, or once GDP, as mentioned before, equals C plus G plus X minus M plus NFIA. What is the NFIA? The difference between income received from abroad for rendering factor services and income paid towards services rendered by foreign national in the domestic territory. It's good? That's good. This is the net, the difference between abroad income and domestic income received by the residents. Personal income. Personal income is the total income received by the individuals of a country from all sources before direct taxes in 1 year. The long equation of personal income states national income minus undistributed corporate profit minus corporate taxes negative social securities contribution plus transfer payment plus interest on public debt. Personal disposable income is the income which can be spent on consumption by individuals and family. Personal disposable income equal personal income negative personal taxes.